Sophia is the only one for me now. That's why I want a divorce, Joseph said with a serious expression. I stood there, unable to respond immediately. Deep down, I wished he would come back to me, that he wouldn't leave us. Because I still loved him deeply. Understood, was the only reply I could manage. Thus, we decided to part ways. Since then, I've been living with my son, Adam. One day, I suddenly received a letter. It was a letter from Joseph, who had chosen Sophia. That was when I first learned he had passed away in a car accident a month earlier. Even so, the letter arrived, stirring my feelings of disbelief. However, I decided to open it. The words, "in case something happens to me," left me stunned. I couldn't believe it. Upon finishing the reading, my entire body shook, and I made a decision in that instant. My name is Amber Davis. I am a 32-year-old working mother, once married to Joseph, who was a year older than me. Our son, Adam, is the center of my life. Amber is so thoughtful, Joseph often said. She knows just the right time to serve food or call the waiter, he would add, appreciating my attentiveness. Joseph and I met at a matchmaking party my friends dragged me to. I've always been shy about expressing my opinions, preferring to observe rather than participate. Even then, while everyone else was enjoying themselves, I was just watching, until Joseph approached me. "Are you bored?" he asked. "No, I'm just not good at starting conversations," I replied. "Here, try this." "It's really good," he said, offering me a plate with his usual kindness. Thanks to him, the night wasn't as uncomfortable as I had feared, and I ended up enjoying it more than I expected. After that group date, we exchanged contact information and quickly became friends. It didn't take long for Joseph to confess his feelings for me, and we started dating. After a few years of dating, we decided to get married. "How adorable," he said one day, referring to our soon-to-be-born child. "How about the name Adam?" His suggestion felt perfect to me. Soon after we got married, our son was born, and Joseph chose that name for him. "I'm so glad I chose you, Amber. You make me so happy," he would say, and I couldn't help but smile. I was happy too, all thanks to him. At the time, I truly believed our happiness would last forever. "Mom, I finished my homework," Adam said one afternoon. "Really? That's amazing," I replied. Adam, much like his father, was very intelligent. He studied on his own without needing to be told and often received help from Joseph. Adam was our greatest pride. However, not everyone saw him that way. Joseph's parents, Elizabeth and Jeffrey, didn't share the same sentiment. "Who does this child take after?" Elizabeth often said with disdain. She was upset that Adam didn't resemble them physically. At every family gathering, Elizabeth would make comments like that, and even when Joseph reassured her, saying, "Of course he's my son," she continued to imply otherwise. "If you keep making comments like this, we won't come over anymore," Joseph warned, but Elizabeth would only offer half-hearted apologies. Despite every visit to her house, she gave the same looks and snide remarks, making it clear that nothing had changed. On the other hand, Jeffrey didn't like that Adam preferred studying at home over playing outside. When Adam started studying on a tablet, Jeffrey often scolded him as he sat focused in the corner. "You'll turn into an idiot if you stare at that thing all day," he said, trying to take the tablet away. "Times have changed, Adam is learning on the tablet," I intervened. But Jeffrey stuck to his belief, arguing, "Nothing good can come from a pile of machines like that. It's no different from a smartphone. Besides, I used to force Joseph to study at home when he was little," Jeffrey said. It was ironic that while Jeffrey had made Joseph study at home as a child, he now expected Adam to play outside. Adam often played with his friends outside, but there were no other kids or even a yard near Joseph's parents' house, so when he was there, he chose to focus on his studies. I'm sorry my parents never approved of our marriage, Amber. Apparently, Elizabeth and Jeffrey had wanted Joseph to marry someone else, a childhood friend of his who was the daughter of a prominent local businessman. From a young age, she had shown special interest in Joseph. For this reason, they couldn't accept him marrying a woman like me. Enough is enough. I love Amber and Adam with all my heart. Don't disappoint me. From that point on, the gap between us and Elizabeth and Jeffrey widened, and our visits to their home grew increasingly infrequent. However, they occasionally showed up unannounced or waited for Adam to come home from school. If you see Grandma and Grandpa, just ignore them, I told Adam while working from home. Knowing that I was usually home, Elizabeth and Jeffrey persistently banged on the door, shouted, and drew attention from the neighbors, even when I pretended not to be there. One time, a neighbor called the police due to the commotion, causing them to leave in a hurry. Since then, I decided to completely ignore them. I couldn't understand why they were so fixated. For safety, I started picking Adam up from school and stayed vigilant in case Elizabeth or Jeffrey showed up. My parents were also worried, though nothing major had happened yet. Still, the anxiety lingered. Maybe we should move closer to Amber's parents, Joseph suggested one day, and we began seriously considering the option. Though moving would be costly, the peace of mind it offered was worth it. Therefore, we started looking for a new home where we would feel safer. One day, my phone rang, displaying an unknown number. At first, I thought it might be work-related and hesitated to answer, but the persistent calls eventually made me pick up. Finally, "You answer, idiot," a woman's voice insulted me as soon as I answered. Frowning, I debated hanging up. "Who are you?" "If this isn't important, I'm ending the call," I said. "How rude," the woman yelled. "I'm Sophia Miller, Joseph's future wife." I fell silent for a few seconds, bewildered. What is this woman talking about? I wondered, considering hanging up again. If this is some kind of joke, I'm ending the call, I warned. It's no joke. I'm Joseph's childhood friend and his future wife. Her words reminded me of the Sophia Joseph had mentioned before. Sophia is selfish and not my type, he had said. Could this be the same Sophia? And why is she calling me? I thought silently. Are you listening? She asked. Yes, I'm listening, I replied. What do you want? Isn't it obvious? Joseph is mine. So leave him. Break up with him now. Her condescending tone made me feel insulted. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. Joseph and I love each other. That's just for now, Sophia replied scornfully. He's only playing with you as a distraction before marrying me. Don't be so confident. I could understand why Joseph didn't like her. Sophia seemed like someone who wouldn't listen to reason. Sorry, I'm working. Goodbye, I said and hung up the phone. Even after that, Sophia kept calling repeatedly, but I ignored her until she finally gave up. However, her harassment didn't stop there. Later, I received a message from her. Let's see how long you can keep your job once the Miller Group turns against you. I felt a knot in my stomach. Was she referring to the Miller Group? The Miller Group was a major company managing several restaurant chains, and its CEO was Gregory Miller. Sophia might be telling the truth. The Miller Group also had dealings with my company and was one of Joseph's business partners. I needed to talk to him immediately. When Joseph returned from work, I told him about Sophia's calls. Hearing what had happened, he looked visibly shocked. It can't be. Sophia. Joseph, are you okay? I asked, worried by his reaction. He quickly shook his head, as if trying to gather his thoughts. It's fine, leave it to me. I'll handle Sophia, he said, smiling to reassure me. Despite feeling uneasy, I chose to trust him as I always did. Okay, I'll leave it to you. Joseph smiled in relief. He had always resolved problems for us in the past, so I decided to let him take care of this one too. But later, I would come to regret this decision. Is Dad you going to be late again today? Adam asked. Seems like it, I replied. From that day on, Joseph started coming home late, claiming it was due to overtime during a busy period at work. Given the circumstances, I couldn't help but wonder if this had something to do with Sophia. But since Joseph didn't share anything with me, all I could do was wait and worry. I wished for everything to return to how it was before. However, a year later, everything suddenly changed. What are you saying? I asked. Sophia is pregnant with my child. I want a divorce, Joseph said without showing any emotion. I couldn't believe it. I stared at him, hoping he would take it back or tell me it was a lie. I've made up my mind. I'll give you custody of Adam and the house, he added coldly. Don't be ridiculous, I replied, still in shock. The house we lived in was one we had planned and chosen together over the course of almost a year. It was a place full of our dreams and hopes. I couldn't believe that the Joseph I knew and loved would give up on all of that. On our family, especially Adam, so easily. Tell me the truth. Why are you doing this? I pressed him for an answer. But he wouldn't meet my eyes and said nothing. I won't sign the divorce papers until you explain what's really going on. Fine, then I'll go back to my parents' house. With that, he walked out. From that day on, Joseph never returned home. He moved in with his parents, Elizabeth and Jeffrey, who were delighted. They called me every day, urging me to accept the divorce and set Joseph free. Despite the pressure, I was determined not to let go until I learned the truth. However, the situation changed when even my own parents began suggesting I accept the divorce. Until then, my parents had supported me and trusted Joseph just as much as I did, but suddenly, their attitude changed. Why are you siding with him now? I don't understand. Amber, we just don't want to see you suffer anymore. It's for your happiness, they said sadly. Persuaded by my parents' words, I finally decided to accept the divorce. I'm sorry, Adam. We won't be able to live with Dad anymore, I said. I understand, Mom, he replied, suppressing his sadness. Fortunately, my salary was enough for the two of us to live comfortably, and I knew my parents would help if needed. It's okay, Mom. As long as I have you, that's all I need, Adam said with a reassuring smile. I held him tightly, knowing I had to be strong for him. Before finalizing the divorce, I decided to have one last conversation with Joseph. All right, let's talk, he agreed to return home one final time. We finally faced each other. Noticing how tired he looked, I tried to sound normal. You seem exhausted, I said. I've been busy, he replied with a deep sigh. As I said before, I'll give you the house and custody of Adam, he quickly added. How can you give up on Adam so easily? I asked, searching his face for any sign of regret. For a moment, hesitation flashed across his expression, but it quickly returned to a cold demeanor. There's another child now, he said, avoiding my gaze. Is that child with Sophia? I asked. Joseph looked away. This wasn't like him. Whenever we had serious conversations, he had always been straightforward, never one to avoid difficult discussions. So, are we no longer needed? I asked, my throat tightening. That's right, he finally said, looking directly at me. Now, Sophia is the only one for me. So please, agree to the divorce, he said with heartbreaking seriousness. In that moment, I was speechless. All I could do was wish for him to come back, for him not to abandon us. My love for him was so overwhelming that I couldn't find the words. Understood, I finally muttered. In the end, we signed the divorce papers. Don't worry, Mom. I'll protect you in Dad's place, Adam said, trying to comfort me as I sank into despair. As long as I had Adam, I realized I didn't need Joseph anymore. I'll be fine too, and I'll make you happy, Adam, we promised each other. Joseph had chosen to spend his life with Sophia. The most shocking part was learning that he had died in a car accident a month ago. My father informed me that Joseph had been the victim of a hit and run. Even though I had decided to divorce him, hearing the news brought me deep sorrow. Deep down, I still loved Joseph, but he had chosen Sophia over me. For that reason, I didn't attend his funeral. However, to my surprise, a letter from him arrived. It sparked deep suspicion in me, but I decided to read it. I deeply regret something regarding you and Adam. I'm truly sorry, the letter began with an apology. I immediately recognized Joseph's handwriting, and memories flooded back, bringing tears to my eyes. As I read further, I came across the words, "In case something happens to me," and I couldn't help but say them out loud. The contents of the letter were so shocking that I forgot to breathe. This can't be true, I said, trembling as I finished reading. At that moment, I felt a strong determination. I understand your feelings, but this isn't right, I murmured to myself, as if to convince myself, and began planning my next steps. I won't forgive this. I won't lose, I vowed firmly and started preparing to act. My name is Amber, Joseph's wife. I'd like to speak with Gregory Miller, I told the receptionist at the headquarters of the Miller Group, my first destination. I'm sorry about what happened to Joseph, Gregory said as he took the letter. Thank you. But I just received this, I replied, handing him the letter. Gregory read it and nodded. Everything written here is true, he said. Hearing those words, my throat tightened, and tears welled up again. Noticing my reaction, Gregory stood up and added, I truly apologize for what happened. As I looked at him, I couldn't help but wonder how such an honest man could have raised someone like Sophia. Even as I heard his apology, the fact that Joseph would never return weighed heavily on my heart. If only I had realized sooner, I thought. I must apologize for that as well. While we don't have all the evidence yet, Gregory revealed something even more shocking. I knew it, I replied. I'm not here to blame you, but please cooperate. We need to gather the evidence, I said with determination. Of course. We'll get everything we need, Gregory Miller firmly promised. With that promise in mind, I began preparing. The goal was clear. To restore Joseph's honor for the true happiness of Adam and me. Sophia, Elizabeth, Jeffrey, prepare yourselves, I said in my heart. 3 days after meeting Gregory Miller, I had enough evidence in my hands. Accompanied by my father, I headed to Elizabeth and Jeffrey's house. I'll be with you the whole time, my father said. Thank you, Dad, I replied, leaving Adam with my mother. When we arrived, I rang the doorbell, and a woman with heavy makeup and flashy clothes appeared. It was undoubtedly Sophia. You're the woman who took Joseph away, I thought. My name is Amber, and this is my father, I said calmly. Oh, Amber? Sophia said, glaring at us with disdainful eyes. We have something important to discuss, I added with a smile, watching her face turn red with anger. It must be disappointing to move out of a mansion and end up in a place like this, I said with a smile. I knew that after Gregory learned the truth about Joseph, he had evicted Sophia from her home and disinherited her, leaving her to live in this modest residence. Don't get cocky. You're the one Joseph abandoned, Sophia replied, her anger evident. We have much to discuss, including that. Could you let us in? My father said calmly. Reluctantly, Sophia allowed us inside. Oh, look who's here, Elizabeth sneered when she saw me walk in. Jeffrey was also there, both of them glaring at me with distrust. I returned their gaze with a calm smile. I have something to say about Joseph, I said, feeling it was time to act. A letter from Joseph? Jeffrey asked incredulously. I handed them the same letter I had shown Gregory Miller. They looked at it skeptically at first, but as they read further, their expressions changed dramatically. You never imagined that such a revealing letter would end up in my hands after Joseph's death, did you? I said, watching their mistrust shift into unease. The letter detailed all their misdeeds, how they had forced Joseph into a marriage with Sophia, knowing she still clung to him obsessively. Elizabeth and Jeffrey had wanted Joseph to marry the daughter of the Miller Group's president, believing it would bring them benefits, and hadn't hesitated to push for that marriage. Sophia, your actions have affected my work and caused people around me to look at me with contempt. They had called day and night, and when I didn't answer, they even contacted my workplace. As a result, Joseph had always felt isolated. Still, he resisted their demands and kept repeating that Amber and Adam were the only ones he loved. Frustrated by his defiance, you resorted to extreme measures. Looking at Elizabeth and Jeffrey, my father, who had been consulted by Joseph before his death, said. Joseph persuaded Amber to agree to the divorce in an attempt to keep her out of this chaos. That's why my father now stood by my side, helping uncover the truth. You even invited Joseph over under the pretense of a family gathering, saying, let's have a drink together as a family, and we'll stop forcing the divorce. Though suspicious, Joseph decided to give his parents one last chance. If anything went wrong, he planned to sever ties completely. At that gathering, Elizabeth and Jeffrey made Joseph drink until he was completely unconscious. Once he had passed out, they called Sophia and staged a scene to make it look as though something had happened between the two. Joseph remembered nothing but was devastated by the belief that he had spent the night with Sophia. To keep Amber and Adam out of the turmoil, he concluded that divorce was his only option. What you hadn't anticipated was Gregory Miller learning the truth and disinheriting Sophia. After being evicted from her home, she moved into this house, planning to live off Joseph's money. But then he died in a tragic accident. You pushed your son into the abyss for your own gain. You don't deserve to be called parents, my father shouted, and Elizabeth and Jeffrey hung their heads in shame. Even so, in the end, Joseph chose me, Sophia arrogantly claimed. Yes, because you told him you were pregnant, I replied, glancing at her abdomen, which showed no signs of pregnancy. It was clear she had used deceitful tactics to trap Joseph. Sophia leveraged her position as the president's daughter to pressure Joseph's workplace. Under constant scrutiny from such an influential company, Joseph became ostracized by his colleagues. Sophia stalked him daily after work. To avoid her ambushes outside the office, Joseph worked late or took long detours home. That explained why he had been coming home late every night. I was just expressing my feelings, Sophia tried to justify herself. Your feelings? You were just chasing after a man who wouldn't bend to your whims, I retorted firmly. Sophia seemed shaken by my words. Joseph fully understood Sophia's intentions and had written about them in his letter. She believes every man should belong to her. The only reason she's interested in me is that I won't be controlled by her. There's no genuine love in her actions, the letter stated. That's not true. I've loved Joseph all along, Sophia protested. Really? Then why do you have a reputation for dating other men? I asked, showing her photos of her with various people. She stammered. Joseph made it clear, didn't he? He said he couldn't love someone who destroyed his happiness. He even doubted whether you were truly carrying his child, I added. Joseph is to blame. He coldly rejected me even when I confessed my feelings, Sophia screamed. So you caused his accident? A cold voice suddenly echoed through the room. It was Gregory's voice, speaking with icy composure. What? Why is my dad's voice here? Sophia looked around in confusion. Then she noticed the phone in my hand. Amber told me she would confront you today, so I asked to join the conversation, Gregory explained. Dad, why did you kick me out? Sophia asked in dismay. It's only natural to cut off someone who ruins lives and becomes a criminal, Gregory replied in a tone so cold it was hard to believe he was speaking to his daughter. Joseph had been consulting with me for a long time. He planned to bring me evidence of Sophia's infidelity and the ways she manipulated him. But on his way to see me, he got into an accident and never made it back, Gregory explained. He betrayed me, so it's what he deserved. Sophia cried out in a frenzy. You ambushed him at the crosswalk and pushed him into the street, didn't you? Gregory accused her harshly, catching Sophia completely off guard. Joseph hadn't noticed Sophia's presence and stumbled onto the road, where he was struck and killed in a hit-and-run. Such a kind man lost his precious life because of your selfishness. How do you even know that? Sophia asked incredulously. I was on the phone with Joseph at the time, Gregory replied. Joseph called me to say he was on his way, and I heard the sound of the accident. Just before it happened, he muttered your name, Gregory revealed. That was what drove Gregory to collect evidence of Sophia's crime as his final act of redemption. Even you betray me, father? Sophia screamed in despair. You were the first to betray trust, Gregory said, ending the call with those words. Dad. Sophia continued to shout at the now silent phone. The evidence Gregory mentioned had already been handed over to the police. It was only a matter of time before she was arrested. No, this can't be, Sophia collapsed to her knees. At that moment, the sound of police sirens grew louder. Sophia was finally arrested and taken to prison. I still have Joseph's inheritance. I can. Sophia began muttering to herself, but I cut her off with a smile. Sorry to disappoint you, but you won't get a penny of Joseph's inheritance. What? But I'm his wife. Sophia protested. Actually, we never submitted the divorce papers, I calmly explained. Although Joseph had signed the documents, he never filed them. In his letter, he had written, I know I should set Amber free, but I just can't. In other words, legally, Joseph and I were still married, and his inheritance belonged to me and our son, Adam. Neither you nor those toxic parents of his would receive a single cent. Hearing my words, Sophia let out an incoherent scream and tried to lunge at me, but the police restrained her. Amber, we were being threatened by her too, Elizabeth and Jeffrey shouted as they watched Sophia being arrested. As they tried to approach me for sympathy, I looked at them coldly. Because of you, I lost my husband, and Adam lost his father. You betrayed Joseph, who trusted you as his parents and wanted to take care of you until the end. But Adam is our grandson. Jeffrey suddenly shouted. He's Joseph's legacy. Yes, Adam is our grandson, Elizabeth echoed. I knew their true intentions. They wanted to claim Joseph's inheritance and ensure their own care in old age. I will never let you use my son, Joseph's legacy, for your selfish purposes, I replied firmly, standing beside my father. Without looking back, we left the house. Later, I heard from neighbors that after the police visit and our argument, Elizabeth and Jeffrey's house became the center of gossip in the neighborhood. They had already been known as troublemakers, but this incident amplified the rumors. What they did to Joseph continued to haunt them. "Mom, did you say something?" Adam asked. "No, I was just thinking about what we should have for dinner tonight." "Don't worry about them anymore," I replied, stroking his head. With renewed determination, I resolved to live for him. After her release, Sophia sought help from Elizabeth and Jeffrey, but they refused to take her in. A heated argument broke out at their doorstep, and eventually, they abandoned her. Rejected by both her own family and Joseph's parents, she disappeared into the darkness of the night. "Well, she's charming enough. Let's hope she works hard to pay for her mistakes," I said with a sense of relief. Knowing she hadn't been pregnant and that no child would be caught up in this chaos gave me comfort. After more turmoil, Elizabeth and Jeffrey sold their house and moved away. A private investigator hired by my father discovered that they caused problems in their new neighborhood as well, attracting attention from dangerous individuals. Those two would never find happiness. Knowing that those who caused so much pain wouldn't find peace gave me a sense of satisfaction. Years later. "See you, Mom. Have a great day." "Don't be late," I said, smiling as I saw Adam off. I finally felt like life was getting back on track. Adam was a high school student. He enjoyed studying, had grown into a kind and compassionate young man, and always cared for me. "I promised to take care of Mom if anything ever happened," he said, recalling a conversation he had with Joseph before entering middle school. Before we parted ways, Joseph had spent a long time talking with Adam. "If I'm ever gone, take care of your mom," he had told him. Since then, Adam had taken that responsibility to heart. Listening to him speak with a smile, I couldn't help but remember Joseph's letter. "If I can't return to Amber and Adam, I want them to live happily and forget about me. Don't seek revenge," Joseph had written. Even in his final moments, Joseph had been thinking of us. Though I couldn't fulfill his last wish to avoid revenge, I didn't regret my decisions. Those choices had brought us the peace and happiness we now enjoyed. My parents still supported us, and Gregory, perhaps out of guilt, continued to provide financial aid. "You know, Gregory's been teaching me about management," Adam surprised me by saying one day. "Really?" "Yeah. It's my dream to one day take over his company," he said, speaking of the future with a hopeful smile. I looked at my son with pride and affection. I resolved to protect him with all my strength in the years to come. Then, looking at Joseph's picture in the living room, I spoke silently in my heart. "Keep watching over us from wherever you are, Joseph." In the photo, Joseph was smiling. For a moment, his expression seemed to convey a gentle approval of our life and the path we had chosen. As some of you may have experienced, there are times when I feel like my life has been a series of decisions that veered in unexpected directions, even when I tried to do the right thing. I didn't always have control, but I kept moving forward. In the end, that's why I'm able to share this story with all of you today. Perhaps it might help someone, or maybe there's someone out there who has gone through something similar. Sometimes, I wonder if I would have been happier if I had taken a different path, if I hadn't married Joseph. Perhaps it would have been just as complex a life, only with different characters involved. Even though I know what ifs don't exist, I can't help but reflect on how life twists and turns in such unexpected ways. In the end, I believe each of us is here to learn something.